the kind of things Shane was touching on last night, and Shane can come on out now, in his intro, in his talks at the dinner were some of the issues that we're going to pursue in more detail now. Issues about that were also foreshadowed heavily by Eric Schmidt when he was on stage yesterday. The proliferation of data, how it's changing the world. Shane, in a way, is here representing, IT. Despite what I just said, we believe there's a lot of different kinds of technologists, but this session is really especially aiming to look at, okay, what is happening with data and IT, and how is that changing the world? So, Shane, you just quickly, lay out the landscape that you feel that we're living in and that we're working in going forward, and how is it changing?
I will do that, but before I do, as a sponsor, I want to just take a second and congratulate you on a fantastic conference.
Oh, well, thank you.
So one of the things
that's what you want sponsors to say, by the way.
Now, this is just a fantastic venue. Really interesting conversations. I think everybody's learning a lot. And I know I am. And we just appreciate being included.
Thanks.
So the challenge, I touched on this a little bit last night. I think the challenge for all of us right now is growth. And our view is that's a matter of timing. I won't try and predict the timing. But if you just look at the macro trends around us, you got to believe we're going to be in a period of growth in the not too distant future here. Just the demographics, the fact that we're expanding the population by more than 1 billion people in the next few years is important, but even more importantly is the way that's playing out. I mean, the fact that the global middle class, all of whom are going to be consumers and participating in the information economy, is growing from 440 million to 1.2 billion in the next 10 years is in our view, opportunity. I won't go into a lot of the numbers on China that I touched on last night, but I think that speaks for itself in terms of the opportunity there and how fast IT is playing a role there. If you tie this back to some of the topics that have been covered this morning, and everybody focuses on information technology and our carbon footprint and what we can do to improve our carbon footprint in general. And I think as an industry, there's a lot we can do, but if you look at our piece of it, we're about 2% of the carbon footprint. So if we fix ourselves completely, we will not have really addressed the problem. And I think along the lines of some of what you heard about earlier today, IT and more importantly, access to the right information for decision making around how to attack that other 98% of the carbon footprint is another huge growth opportunity. And for businesses like Alcoa and some of the others that have been represented here today, they need that information to make good decisions about how to improve their business and their carbon footprint. So the more we can get these next generation IT infrastructures deployed, and the more we can continue to do very sophisticated things like analytics on business information, the more we can put the decision makers in a position of power to move faster than we are today in improving this.
The kind of data that seems to be proliferating the most rapidly right now is video. Is there the prospect that we're going to be able to use video and search, archive, store, analyze video the way we have come to assume we can do with text? Is that reasonable to expect with processing power and all the stuff that you're making available?
I believe so, and I think you're seeing some of that today. And again, information's doubling, digital information is doubling every sort of 12 to 18 months. I think it's closer to 12 months now. And the interesting thing about that is structured versus unstructured. So structured data is, or unstructured data is growing at about 3 times the rate of structured data. And when we say unstructured, we mean video and audio and streams of click streams and all of the normal web-based information that's not structured today. Most of us have work going on in our labs around facial recognition, image recognition, all of which is very promising but requires enormous amounts of computing power. And I think you'll see more of that play out. There's a lot of work we've done over the past few years in indexing in the video space so that we can attach metadata so you can then go back and find things. But I think the more promising approach is to actually process and work right on the video itself and to do image recognition and scene recognition and use that to then pattern match and search and find the things you're looking for.
That's good, because it seems like we're going to be communicating more and more with video. So, you know, this idea of data proliferation's come up so many times now. I'm trying to think of the best way to what angle to go at with this. But obviously, you know, and the Wall Street Journal's been writing a series the last few days about this incredible set of data that's being sort of unwillingly extracted from us every time we move our pinky digitally. And you know, it raises all these questions about privacy and security, which, you know, Eric mentioned, it came up last night in John and Dean's thing. I mean, how confident are you that we will retain a sufficient sense of privacy to feel comfortable with the way the world is continuing to change, number one, and that we are basically going to be able, but let's just start with that one, and then I'll ask you the security question separately.
Well, I think this is going to be a challenge for us for the next few years, for sure. There's a lot of different views on what is appropriate in the privacy area. What we tend to do, which is kind of the easiest approach, is an opt-in approach. So, you know, a lot of the work that we want to do in personalization, where search is done for you rather than by you, it's context-based search, where, you know, the system knows who you are, where you are, what context you're operating in, all the things that sort of get into the privacy space. If we can make sure people have an opportunity to opt in, then that gets us part of the way there. It's going to be a combination of policy and technology, and it's just one of those hard problems that we have to solve. I'm not sure there's an easy answer short term, and it varies by region. So, you know, here there's a different set of issues than there is in China and some of the other countries, and we're just going to have to work between government agencies and the technology community to make sure we resolve that.
I just want to get a little dialogue going about that. Eli, I see you over there. Eli Pariser of MoveOn.org. You know, how do you look at this privacy thing? Does that make sense to you? I mean, you've presumably been reading this Wall Street Journal series. Can we get the mic to him? We're ambushing now. You know, this journal series of, you know, it's not about opt-in, opt-out. It's just happening, right? You like don't have any choice. And honestly, it is like every move you make. I mean, several people have said it's not that earth-shakingly new, some of the stuff in those articles. I think it's been well presented, because it's just laying out stuff that maybe some people knew, but when you realize that literally they are correlating enough offline data and about you to know that when you do anything online, you are a 40-year-old woman with 2 kids who lives in Cincinnati. The stuff you might have told Facebook, but you didn't think you told, you know, X porno website or whatever that you're going to. What do you think about that, Eli? This is a big issue for MoveOn.
Well, my concern is, you know, I mean, I think the trend toward personalization seems pretty strong, pretty inevitable, but there's a pretty kind of unsophisticated thinking happening about what that means for identity, you know, and so to me, the idea, you know, that sort of you're just going to collapse all of this data into one kind of composite identity, and that is a fair representation of who people are, seems to me to be not actually the way that human beings work, which is that we do act different ways in different contexts, and we do change, and changing is actually an incredibly important part of the human experience. And so how do you deal with that when the method of representing who a person is sort of the accretion of all of the data points that have been accumulated about them over their history? How do you allow people to say, yeah, you know, I was an alcoholic, but now I'm really not, so please stop showing me the ads for Miller Lite or whatever?
I think, you know, Eric talked about this last night a little bit in terms of federation of identity and, you know, how we're going to address some of the issues that you just raised. this is an opportunity for us to use technology to address a hard part of the problem. And I think as we do get more federated identity management tools and capabilities in place, it'll help us.